Welcome, everybody, back to the Steadfast Podcast. Jessie Evans here, owner of Steadfast Christian Counseling, and I'm here with Emily Coomer, one of our LPCs on staff here at Steadfast. And we're going to talk to you today about something we think is pretty important, and it's something that comes up on the podcast a lot in terms of this concept of unpacking your own stuff. And we're going to get kind of detailed today with parents on something that, I think it's kind of common. It probably happens in my home daily, weekly for sure. But when kids push away or maybe even have some sort of behavioral reaction, we want to teach you how to slow down today and notice what is going on inside for you before you have a reaction. Because we talk about a lot, like, what counseling actually does, I think, is it moves people from a place of kind of a reactive reality and way of living, not being aware, to kind of a training into sort of slowing down enough and noticing so that you have agency over how you show up in the world through healing and through awareness. And so Emily's going to lead us through some of this stuff today. Emily is one of our awesome counselors, and she loves working with kids. She's one of the most experienced people on our team. She brings a ton of wisdom. And so I'm so excited to have her sit with us today. Emily.
Thank you, Jessie, for that intro. Yeah, I wanted to talk about this today because I think it is a very common experience that is happening with parents and caregivers. And it's something that I see come up in the therapy space quite often. And like you were kind of saying, how we are teaching clients in the therapy space, and often I'm teaching kids being able to slow down before reacting. We can also look at it, teaching these skills to parents as well, and how that's extremely valuable for both parties. And to start with this for listeners, I want you to think about, have you ever tried to comfort your child and they pushed you away? Maybe they snapped at you, they might roll their eyes, they tell you to leave them alone. These are kind of some common things that are coming up. And how that behavior is perceived often as rejection. And I think before we go forward, I did want to specify that we're specifically exploring situations where pushing away is happening within safe relationships. This does not cover when rejection could be linked to harm or abuse or unsafe adults. Just wanted to say that.
Yep. Great.
Yes. So I think the biggest thing to kind of start out with is, again, thinking of this behavior of pushing away as not a form of rejection, but that this is often communication. And thinking about for how many kids, but this can also apply to young children and teenagers, that behavior can often become the language that they use when words aren't enough or they just don't have that to pull from.
Of that statement. So, and I think we still probably do that as adults too, but like, behavior is the language we use when we either don't have the words or words aren't enough. That's great.
Yep. Yes. And often, again, kind of further what this behavior can look like. One of the most common things I see or parents are telling me is when their child is really upset, the form of rejection can look like saying that they hate you or I don't love you, or often the one that hurts the most is, you're not a good parent. And with teenagers, they can say similar things. Sometimes they're more inwards, so it just can look like shutting down. Or when you're trying to question them more of what's going on, they start to become rude, or again, say, leave me alone. I don't care is another really common phrase and should kind of be a warning kind of sign going off for parents and caregivers that they do really care and like something deeper is going on underneath.
So I don't care never means I don't care.
Yes.
Almost never.
Almost never. And yeah, that's a phrase that parents are telling me the most that is coming up. So as a parent, trying to not let that go, trying to pause and pay attention to that. And kind of now that we know some of these behaviors and what that rejection looks like when they're upset, I think it's important that we try to kind of go underneath the behavior. A common therapy thing that we use is when we think about anger, it's this anger iceberg. And thinking about anger is often the emotion that they are going to present, but that there is many feelings beneath the surface. And so it's trying to tap into those feelings underneath.
Yeah, so good. I talk about a lot on here, like trying to get to the thing behind the thing, whether that be within yourself or other people, and really coming back to this idea that also, and this is something I tell my kids a lot about other people and their interactions with other people, but someone's reaction is most of the time not about you at all. And so to really have that concept of there's normally a thing behind the thing.
Yes. Yes. And that's something important. And hopefully through this episode today of parents trying to reframe that rejection and to know that not to take it, like you're saying, necessarily personally. And this is kind of going into underneath what's going on. So, one of the biggest things that is usually going on is just a general like overwhelm of emotions. So a lot of emotions are flooding in at once, and the parent might notice that and then them trying to comfort in that moment. But sometimes, and this is kind of going to tie into like secure attachment, that sometimes connection, especially in safe relationships, is going to bring feelings closer to the surface.
Okay. So sometimes you're saying, I think in safe relationships, we might see more volatile emotions because the child feels safe to express them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that is another, I'm hoping for parents and caregivers to be able to reframe is knowing that these big behaviors are coming because there is some foundation of trust and security that they feel like they can allow themselves to express these bigger emotions and feeling like it's safe in the sense of that um, there's not going to be like rejection or unsafe behaviors from you that are going to result from that.
From the parent's side of things.
Yes.
So, like, we definitely have an opportunity here to shape safety and shape some of that maybe internal dialogue that might be forming when we see these big emotions come out, to not react in a way that causes that child to start believing I'm too much or people can't handle me or whatever
Yes.
it may be. Okay.
Yes. This goes back, which I know we've talked about a lot, I feel like on the podcast, that emotional safety and parents being an emotional kind of harbor that they can always come back to.
Yeah.
And sometimes too, remembering that underneath the behavior for the child, there may be a fear of closeness because they have possibly learned through other experiences with other adults or with their peers that it can be kind of risky to open up to others or need somebody
Right.
and have experienced rejection before or been met with emotional unavailability before. When as a parent you're trying to get close, that closeness can sometimes trigger a fear within them.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of like reminding their system of, this might be an invitation to a place where I've opened up and been hurt before. So I'm not even going to go there again. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So again, as a parent, trying to remove yourself from the personal part that it's that you're feeling that personal response and just trying to be able to remember like that's coming possibly from different experiences that they have had. And then this ties back into why this is so important to have the best response that you can in these moments so that you can help try to reinforce for them that you are safe and that that relationship is safe.
One thing that my mind keeps jogging back to is just this concept of how safe it does feel when you are with someone, even like in our adult relationships. Like if I'm in an adult relationship with another adult and I feel like that person can like hold all of my stuff without me having to package what I'm saying in a certain way with a certain tone, with whatever, like if they are able to like hold that, and be okay when I'm not necessarily packaged all perfectly, that feels extremely safe. I want to invite the listener to just take a second and just like imagine for a second yourself in a relationship where you feel like you have that safety, that emotional safety, and what that feels like. Because I do think that this is a practice and it's a lot of work to do in the moment, especially with little people. Um, and as a parent. And so to be able to draw on like some of this experience of like, okay, this is how I want my kid to feel. Like how this feels for me right now is how I want my child to feel. That gives you kind of some gas in the tank to practice slowing yourself down in the moment and not reacting yourself out of your own hurt and your own stuff.
Yes, yes. Remembering that for children as parents, and I think this is why it can feel like a lot for parents, that they, even when they get older, they're still mirroring you. So they're looking to you of how to manage their own emotions. If they're seeing a parent who is struggling with managing their own reactions to discomfort, that they're internalizing that. They're seeing the behavior that you're exhibiting. So that's why it's important for the child, but also very important for parents and caregivers to have that pause moment, and kind of get into this in a minute, but just being able to regulate your own emotions, that's showing your child how to regulate theirs.
So good. So good.
Another thing that is going on underneath this rejection behavior that's important to remember is a lot of times a need for control and autonomy.
Uh,
This is especially common in younger kids, like toddlers and then teenagers. So
yeah.
they're constantly battling that need between connection and independence.
Yep. Which makes complete sense. I mean, they're both, it's actually a very similar time in brain development.
Mhm.
There's with kind of all the different things that are forming for them. But yeah, it's a very similar push pull time. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that it's not always conscious, but I think sometimes, and I think more for teenagers, there's unconsciously this thought of, if I'm able to push away, that, I'm able to stay in control. In those moments where they're feeling distressing, or the parent is trying to go underneath or just trying to comfort, that can feel like losing a sense of, it can be vulnerable. And so,
Yeah.
um, especially for teenagers, they're wanting that independence, but they're also struggling with that connection. So I think it's important for parents to remember that, again, even if your teenager is trying to kind of reject you or push you away, remembering that underneath that, there still is this need of connection.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when my first one was a baby, we did this type of infant Montessori thing. It was called RIE, RIE, and I will put the link to it in the show notes because I think it's a pretty cool like uh, kind of way to be with infants. But it is this concept of like even physically in the space as they're learning to like navigate. Maybe it's just like the living room. Maybe they're just crawling for the first time to really like just sit in one spot and then allow them to go and explore, but they know where the base is. and they know you're always going to be sitting right there. Um, and that picture comes back to me now that my kids are teenagers because I kind of want that same messaging of like, I'm not going to chase you all over this living room and like, make sure you don't like, you know, as you're trying to pull up on the couch, you don't like topple back on your butt. Like, I'm not going to hover over you, but I'm going to always be right here, you know, and I'm going to be there if you need me. I'm right here. So it's kind of that same thing that I picked up from Rye when they're starting to kind of explore as toddlers. The same, it sounds like kind of a similar concept that you're talking about right now of allowing them to navigate some of the freedom that they need to grow into.
Yes, yes. I think it can be really uncomfortable for parents and caregivers to give that space. I think there's that instinct as a parent or caregiver to like see your child is upset and want to fix it or make it better. And
Yeah.
it takes a lot of self control to step back and recognize that sometimes what's most helpful is to give them that space
Mhm.
and able to um, reinforce for them that when they're ready, they can come back. I'm here when you're ready is a good message for parents, I think, in that moment.
Yeah, and it's hard, like, because you wanna give them the playbook, you know,
Yeah.
but they don't learn if you give them the whole playbook, It's really hard. It's hard to navigate.
And I think to going quickly into, so if we think of the iceberg, remembering that some of the feelings underneath that are happening are probably like shame or fear or sadness, confusion. But again, what it's coming out as is anger or sarcasm or withdrawal. And that the behavior like is trying to say, I don't know how to say this, but something is wrong.
Mhm. Yeah, very good.
Um, and kind of going back a little bit of, why um, this can really feel like rejection for parents. I think, um, again, it's coming back to parents' own experiences with rejection or own experiences with their parents growing up. Um, it brings up a lot. And then again, if the child is trying to use kind of your parenting as a tool to kind of dig into,
Mm, mm,
that can be very upsetting. But I think remembering that these moments aren't measuring your worth as a parent. They're more kind of testing, again, the safety of the relationship that you have with them.
mhm. The thing that's coming up for me too is, like, we get so many cultural messages of the result of good parenting means that my kids act like ABC, you know?
Yes.
And so when our children react in a way that, different cultural circles might say is disrespectful or like, whatever. Some of these like Christian parenting books where, there are these messages that are sent out that really, I think, are causing a lot of harm as parents react to their kids in these situations.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, yeah, from like there's cultural messages that go on and societal messages. And then also, like you're bringing up within the church communities and faith, um, that I think still hold tightly on to um, that the parent is supposed to be kind of the type of figure where it's kind of my way or the highway. There's no room for the child to question.
Mhm.
And from research, we know that that's leading more to a fear based relationship and dynamic that is going
Right.
on. And
Not a
so,
true secure attachment.
yes, yes.
Mhm.
So, again, when children are having these behaviors that are being perceived as rejection, again, it's okay. And I'm hoping that the listeners can take away it's okay to have space for them to regulate and for you to regulate. That is going to
Yeah.
be building trust and a healthier relationship than you kind of coming back with messages of, you know, you need to stop, or that's not a big deal. Why are you so upset?
Mhm.
Things like that can be harmful.
Mhm. I love that, like, make it normal and for them to see that it's okay to have space for you to regulate and for them to regulate. I love that. Let's normalize it.
Yes. Um, so kind of some bullet points too for parents then of, what can be kind of practical responses in these moments that can help build security. The first one being having a calm, consistent emotional availability. Security is coming from consistent, predictable responses. Remembering too, the security is not coming from perfection. It's coming from the consistency and it being predictable.
Right.
So, as parents, remembering that you don't have to fix the feelings that are going on in that moment for your child.
Yeah.
Um, you don't have to necessarily make them go away. We have to be able to have the child learn how to regulate for themselves. But again, that's coming back and tying back to you of being able to have a consistent emotional availability in that moment. And again, that's going back to simply kind of saying, I'm here when you're ready,
Mhm.
you know, consistently coming back to, after um, there has been an argument that has occurred because of the emotional response, always coming back to it at some point when feelings have calmed down.
Yeah. The repair piece, right, is, like, key.
Yes. Um, that repair piece is what's going to build trust. Again, it's not there being an absence of conflict. That is
Right.
going to be part of the relationship. It's, can they trust that you're going to come back to it? Can they trust that, if I try to push you away, that you're still going to be there and you're still going to come back? So, yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I think that is so key. The repair piece is, like, the
Mhm.
just the a few things there in kind of the secure attachment bullets that come up for me are, the messaging of, like, we can have a different opinion, we can have, like, kinda high emotions, and we can still be okay. Like, I'm not going anywhere, I've got your back, I still am for you, like, you know, I'm here to support you, I'm open to hear your point of view on
Yes.
this. I may change my mind because of what you think. And for the child to know that, like, if dad reacts some way, um, that they're going to do some self reflection and be able to come back and say, like, yeah, that the way I reacted in the car, like, I'm sorry for how I came across there. Like, I was doing like three things and I like dismissed you, but I noticed that, and that's not how I wanna show up, I'm sorry. The repair piece is very, very important.
Yes. And again, I think it's modeling and teaching the child of, you know, being able to take accountability of like, I had this big emotion and maybe acted in a way that was unkind or unhelpful, but, I'm willing to learn and try again, and do better next time.
I think that that type of thing also, at the same time, is building that internal dialogue for the child, and so the child is also learning, "Okay, I don't have to be perfect. I can always get back to good." Even relationally, but also, like, individually, like, I think when we create this security relationally, we're also creating individuals who are more likely to, like, try things and risk and, like, not be so afraid of failing or having to be perfect, and so I think there's so much of this, like, as we're raising these kids that, is also so shaping to who they become as individuals as well.
Yes. I think also this kind of goes into boundaries. Like I think teaching children that again, it's okay to feel an emotion, but it's also okay as the parent to set some boundaries of, it was not okay that we said those unkind words or those hurtful words, or it's not okay that we hurt somebody or broke something.
Mhm.
So, not trying to squash the emotion that's happening in that moment, but, it's okay to have it's healthy for the parent to put guardrails also, though, around it.
I love that you said that because I think that that's a common misconception when we talk about building secure attachment. I think parents sometimes interpret that as like, well, I just have to be a doormat or I have to like just like take everything that they say and do. And so to really for you to bring in the importance of no, 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 you're still parenting. You're still putting up guardrails. You're still like instructing on like, that's just, that's not the way to react, is really important to bring up.
Yes. Yeah. And this again goes back to cultural factors and um, societal parts of it that parents being afraid of, yeah, is this going to come across as having no control
Yeah.
if I am validating the emotion? I always try to clarify for parents that you're validating the emotion, we're not validating the behavior.
Hmm. It's
Um,
great.
yeah. And I feel like that's usually can be helpful for parents and caregivers and hopefully our listeners for something to remember.
Yeah, that's great. That's so good. I mean, I feel like we've kind of like touched on a lot of things. Do you have any like practical phrases or like tools to give parents that will help them slow down in the moment? Like we've talked to parents about like, saying things like, tell me more about that. When there's a big, emotion or outburst that comes out, or, the child says something that really like knocks you back 5 feet emotionally. That's one hack that like we've shared before is to just use that phrase like, okay, tell me more about that. And that creates space for you internally to process before you react. Are there any other things that you can think of like that we could just throw out for parents?
I think reflecting is a good tool. So in those moments that they're dysregulated or upset, that can look like you saying like, "Man, you are really mad that that happened."
Mm.
Or I really wonder if you're feeling anxious about this thing. So, kind of reflecting back as the parent what you're seeing in them, that kind of gives you a pause moment to kind of collect your thoughts. And I think it's also helpful for the child to be able to have somebody else be able to kind of connect the dots for them of this is
Hmm.
PT work, but like this thing happened and this emotion came up and now I'm behaving in this way.
And to name it for
Yes.
them. So
Yes.
you're starting to give them maybe more language
Mhm.
than what they had. Yeah.
Also, in those moments, I'll tell parents too, it can be a moment to either do a coping skill with them. So it can be helpful for parents to suggest, like, uh, I think it'd be really helpful if I went on a walk because I know I'm feeling really frustrated right now. Like, do you want to join me? And sometimes that can be an invitation to kind of co regulate together.
Mhm. Love it.
But again, I think for listeners, it being okay for you to say, like, I'm, feeling overwhelmed. I'm going to go take some space. It's okay, feel okay to be able to also walk away if you need to for a minute. And again, the repair is going to be the most important piece there.
Yeah. I love something that Annalise says that she's another one of the therapists on the team, but just speaking to parents in terms of we have the responsibility to be the regulated brain in the room. That's part of our responsibility as a parent. And we have to do the work to get to that place to where we can be the regulated brain. And we haven't talked a lot about the brain science of all of this, but like just for, just a quick, simple explanation, when we are so heightened emotionally, that part of our brain that communicates things well really goes offline. It's hard to find words. It's hard to understand the what is even happening. And so to be able to regulate the nervous system, your own, and then, as you're I think the younger your children are, um, the simpler this can be,
Mhm.
because I think about in terms of, um, with let's just use the example of a toddler. And honestly, if I may say this as an aside, I think one of the reasons that toddlers throw themselves on the floor when they're having a tantrum is because they are trying to emotionally regulate. They're trying to get that physical feedback
Mhm.
of emotional regulation.
Yes.
But, think about something as simple as like holding, let's say there's a child that fell and scraped their knee. So in that moment, I'll just use my kid as an example. He got hurt at wrestling. He's 6, got hurt at wrestling. I'm sitting on the side. He comes over and he's crying. I ask him what happened, knowing full well he's not going to be able to tell me what happened at that moment. And so I just put him in my lap for a second. And so physically, I am hugging him and I'm breathing, and my nervous system is lending regulation to his nervous system in that moment. It's a lot easier to do this with a child. And then as he starts to calm and breathe, he can now begin to put words to what he thinks and feels. But when we're so like heightened, it's really difficult to do that. And I think the older the kids get, it's obviously more difficult to lend that physical co-regulation to them because that's not something that they're as interested in.
Mhm.
Uh, so things like walks, and I also think banking some of these moments too
Mhm.
is a really good strategy. So, finding things to do shoulder to shoulder with them, you
Mhm.
know, going and shooting baskets or going for a walk. I have a rule in my house that like when my teenagers hug me, I don't let go till they do. Like I have a young teenage boy who doesn't always have a lot of words. My girls have a lot of words, but he just, but he will just come up to me and just lean in and hug me, you know, at random times. And so to me, those moments are banking safety for him. You know, it's like flashback, 15 years ago when we're sitting in that rye little room and I'm crisscross applesauce on the floor and he's like exploring the room and then coming back. We're talking about co-regulation and how important that is. So whatever you have to do as a parent, you need to probably be in your own therapy. If you're not, you need to be unpacking your own suitcase, which is what we talk about. It's really hard to raise kids if you're not unpacking your stuff because honestly, if we don't unpack, we just hand our suitcase to them and then
Yes.
they've got to unpack their stuff and our stuff. So to really take that seriously and take that responsibility of learning to be the regulated brain in the room so that we can offer that co-regulation to them. And it's funny, like we do have prescribed methods and we have some things that work, right? But every kid is different. And so just figuring out with you and your personality and your child's personality, like where are those connection points? Where are those micro connection points? And what makes them feel regulated and safe is just really an important thing to figure out.
Yes. Yeah. Co-regulation, I think is hopefully an important takeaway for the listeners to look more into and to think about. And I think, knowing that in those moments, it's not again, all on you to fix it. Like coming to a place of you trying to work together with the child to get through it. Yeah, just finding for both of you what's going to be helpful and what's going to work, and trying to transition out of coming from a place of being reactive in those moments when we're feeling rejected as a parent, and trying to come at it more of trying to understand, trying
Right.
to see the bigger picture that is going on in that moment with your child.
Right. And I'm just thinking about as you're just saying that, like how much patience is a key, you know,
Uh,
because it's like, yes, like we have to be responsible to co-regulate, but you're right. Like it's not, you could be sitting here thinking, okay, I'm regulated and they're still rejecting me. Like, what am I doing wrong? But how there's a patience piece to it. And it's a meeting. The older that they get, like they have to learn this skill for themselves as well. And so it's a group process. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway that we're hoping for our listeners is, being able to shift this question of, why are they doing this to me right now, to what they might be needing. Thinking about when we've talked about what's going on underneath, and your job being that you're going to be the emotionally secure and safe one in that moment that they can turn to.
Very good. Well, thank you, Emily. This was good info.
Yeah.
And if you guys are listening and you're like, like I think I could probably use some help in this area. Maybe you have a child who is very in tune with their emotions and it's something that's a little bit hard to navigate at the house. We can help you with that. Emily can help you with that.
Mhm.
So you can schedule a free consultation on our website and bring your kiddo in to see Emily. And the neat thing about seeing Emily is she's going to give you a lot of tools. Um, she's got a lot of tools for the parents as well. And so she works closely with parents. And that's really what we're here for, is to help people move from a place, like we said at the beginning, of reactivity, agency, whether that be kids, whether that be adults. We just want to give you more tools for your belt so you can navigate with a little bit less stress. So thanks for tuning in today, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks. Bye.